Hello and welcome. My name is Art Fuel. I'm a technical product manager with the Cloud Native Apps unit at a business unit at VMware. And this is a quick start guide for the PKS Ninja contributors. We're doing a sort of beta program right now. And so if you're watching this, you may be a participant in that, or at some point we'll open it up to a broader community, and it's really open at this point anyways. If there are external participants who'd like to join in, reach out to me. And really, this isn't just about a beta. Really, the intent of the community here is that this is an active practitioners community for people who work in cloud native and DevOps technologies. And I will continue to add lots of additional ongoing labs for practitioners, so you could start up, build a lab environment based on the information in these lab guides that are contained herein. And there should be a continued stream of new labs that you can just, new exercises that you can just run with, since we're all sharing a base set of topologies here in the curriculum around the lab guides. And so the community overall is very focused on labs. It's very focused on participants. And so everybody who is a student or is wants to participate in other ways, everyone is encouraged to participate and contribute. And so contributions can be as simple as fixing a little typo. We are moving towards these really fast release cycles, and I don't think anybody has prepared an educational system that allows us to keep up with that, right? But we've all got to keep up with it because we are supporting these environments. And so, kind of the intent here of the community is bring us together, participate, contribute, learn, and share our knowledge with each other to really keep it something where we can have we're not just going to learn one time how to work with cloud native technologies or Kubernetes. All these technologies constantly evolve, so our understanding of them have to continually evolve, and that's really, again, the purpose of the community. I'm doing some restructuring on the site now, so depending on when you watch this, it may look exactly the same, it may not. Really, the class was started for a specific internal PKS Ninja program that's for specialist SEs in VMware. But we put all of the lab guides for that on GitHub with the intent here. Sorry about that. My screen. With the intent here that everybody can participate from the broader community, and not only for your first time going through a new learning course, but really ongoing as you need to maintain your education and keep it up to date. Really have a broad active community, and not just have lab guides here for that specific course. Those will be available for everybody to participate, but really to maintain and to continue to enhance and add on to those lab guides. And there's another intent, is this site is not only meant for that one PKS Ninja course. It's really, part of this is inspired is from my perspective in the Cloud Native Apps business unit. We help to support a lot of different internal teams that need to get trained, partner teams that need to get trained, customers that need to get trained. And we're getting lots of different requests for different types of classes, for different types of roles, and they all generally use nearly the same curriculum but are structured slightly different. So one role might need a day and a half training at a little more introductory level. Another role may need 3 days, or we actually, the course, full Ninja course is a 6-day course. And then we have ongoing needs beyond that. Even that course still really only gets into introductory troubleshooting. And so we're working with support teams to add additional courses for and engineering as well, to add additional depth courses, so we can continue to come back to this community, whether you're going to come here for an individual lab guide. And we're also going to add a page here, a new directory for courses. And so if someone's coming to, say, the original Ninja course, they'll see a directory here for courses, and they can click on that, and that will guide them through the labs that they would do for that course. I'm going to add an additional course soon for getting started, and other additional courses and workshops that may use the content on this, but it may not use all of the lab guides in any particular order. And so correspondingly, right, if you go into the lab guide section today, I'm here on the PKS Ninja repo, And if I go into lab guides, you can see here there is, right in the names of the directory structure, I have the lab numbers, so it implies an order. And I'm actually going to go reach in and change that. And so each course will have a course code and a version number. But we don't want to imply order in here going forward. So I'll change that around, and then you'll go to the other, a page that's specific to a course that you want, say PKS Ninja, and it will provide links to whichever course lab guides here in the order that specific course wants. So I hope that's clear, but it'll be increasingly clear as I make these updates over the next few days. And so the main thrust now is getting into how to contribute. And so I've actually need to make some updates to this here, the Harbor pipeline install. I noticed earlier it was completely blank, and I started to make some updates, and I realized that would be a good opportunity to show you guys how I make some updates and to go over the process of how to set yourself up. Is once you set yourself up initially, making continued commits to the repo is really, really easy. And so really the intent for even students in the course, and really we're working on structuring all the courses to where the students commit their work to a folder in the repo. So there's a students of directory here. If I go back into PKS Ninja, you'll see the students right here. And there's a couple guides here. One that has my username, and another is another student who's completed this. The instructions are such that going forward, we want to have every student start by creating this directory. Fork the repository, create the directory, and then commit it back up. Right? By doing that, you're actually taking the exact action you do to make an update to this main PKS Ninja repo. And so whether it's you start by adding this directory, and we want students to then, every subsequent exercise, whenever you have a student, modify a YAML file, we want them to go into, use Git to go in, save that file, and then push it back up to their directory. And so any student who comes to the Ninja course, or if there's other courses that, as we add other courses that are related here that are supported by this Ninja site, we want them all to start and get used to the process of Git. And committing to community repos, because regardless of your relation to cloud native technologies, if you're working in IT, this using and contributing to GitHub repositories and communities is really a foundational skill for cloud native technologies. So whether it's this is the core of what you do, or whether you're in a related IT role, these are really important skills, and we spoon feed, kind of walk you through this process to make it very straightforward. You do it a few times, it becomes really comfortable and easy, and then for students who we put through these courses, they'll all come out with a natural understanding and comfort with committing to community repositories. And so, really we want to have a bunch of students, whether it's committing back and helping to maintain this repository, or going out into the broader open source community and participating in those communities. This is really kind of a key foundational skill we want to teach. So let's start off here. I'm going to go ahead and get into how we do these contributions. And so I have, I'm going to go to the main PKS Ninja repository here, right? So you see here, I'm on github.com, CNA Tech PKS Ninja. Now I'm logged in right now with my afuel VMware account, which you notice I also have another account here. You can see here my last commit, afuel. Now, afuel account is my main GitHub account, and it's already an administrator on this repository. And because I am, I can commit directly. So right now, I'm showing you I'm logged in with this alternate account, afuel VMware, and this account has no special privileges. And so the example I'm showing is really, very much exactly the same as when you're logging in with your account. Now, when you come to the CNA Tech PKS Ninja repo, the reference for everything I'm about to show you is right here in lab 12. And so when you when you go to set up your own fork or doing your own commits, you can come here as a point of reference, and this gives, step-by-step instructions. They're all the way down in section 2.2 here at the, towards the bottom. So we get down to section 2.2, forking and pull requests. And right here, starting in 2.2.1, this walks you through this process of how to fork that I'm about to show you. And I've already done a little bit of this, but you can see the full excruciating detail here with each screenshot right here in section 2.2. in lab 12. So now let's back out. To do this, I'm going to go right to the main page here of the PKS Ninja repo, and you'll click the fork here. And I've already forked this, so I don't know what's going to happen when I click on it. So now it's going to direct me to the fork that I already made. It knows I already made a fork. I think if it's the first time making it, it may ask you a question or two. But then what you end up having is this is my GitHub account. You see, now I have github.com afuel VMware. And so that'll be whatever your user account that you're logged into. And you've got a copy, but really a fork of the PKS Ninja repo. And once you have this, you can continue to keep your fork in sync. And so you don't need to create a new fork and go through all this every time you want to make an update. You will make an update to your fork, and then next time later, maybe you want to come and work on it again, you can just do a quick command to sync your fork back up with the main repository, and then you just make your updates to your local fork again and commit it back up. And it's a very quick process to make commits. And it's good and you want to get used to it, because when you're committing, especially to community repositories, you want to make your commits small and frequent. Right? Several people may be committing, and you don't want to accidentally commit the same exact thing that somebody else did. Normally, that's not something you have to worry about too much, because Git is very good at helping to handle that. But to really make it work really well, you want to do small, frequent commits. So here we are in my fork. And once you have your fork, you're going to go ahead and clone your fork of the PKS Ninja repository. And so copy this value here, and we're going to use that in just a minute. And you'll go ahead and open up your terminal client. This is my terminal that I use. I use the Visual Studio Code IDE. It doesn't matter if you use this or not. You can use we're going to go through some easy ways. You can do this straight from the web browser, so you don't need to have anything local, and it's really easy. You just click on the edit button in the browser and save, and then you can actually make little updates that way as well. If we're hoping, if you become a regular participant and if you start doing this more, bite the bullet, start using an IDE. I recommend. It really can make your life easier. It can be very simple. I know I started. I'm not very experienced with IDEs myself. I've been playing a little bit with them for a while, and I used to start playing with some of the open source ones and found that sometimes they can be real complicated or real buggy. And I really like Visual Studio Code because it has a strong community around, I think, support from Microsoft as well, and a really strong community. I'm very hesitant to, with Microsoft in general, but I think Visual Studio Code, you find, has really earned a strong community among people who are generally very skeptical of Microsoft. Because it's really good if you're new to IDEs, because when you go find a plugin, you want to try to find good websites, blogs and stuff that tell you how to do stuff, and you want things not to be buggy, because especially if you're new, something that's buggy can really throw you through a loop. So I'll do a different video and blog at some point, or lab on how I set up my environment. But you can go download Visual Studio Code, play with it, and keep in mind, a lot of the complexity of setting up these IDEs is because you have to set them up to work with a bunch of programming languages, right? We're not needing that to make these updates. Everything we're doing is for standard simple markdown text, and so there's really not a lot of extensions or setup that you need to do to code or a similar IDE to be able to support markdown. So regardless of your whether you're using this or a different text editor, you notice here in the bottom of my screen I have a standard terminal. I'm on Windows. I'm using Windows Subsystem for Linux, and so this is really a standard Ubuntu Bash shell. You can do this with command line. You can do this with PowerShell. You'll have to adapt the instructions slightly to your terminal of preference, but it is supported to use, through Mac or through standard Windows command prompts. Or in this case, I'm using Ubuntu Bash in Windows, which is pretty much just standard Ubuntu Bash. There's very, very few differences. And so let's go ahead and get started here. Now, I already have some Git repos cloned locally, so you can see if I list my GitHub directory here, I got a bunch of cloned repos. I even have a clone of the main PKS Ninja repo. And in this case, what we want to do is clone our fork of the PKS Ninja repo. And so what we'll do here, just to make sure we don't mix up anything else we already have in our main repo directory, is in our local file system we can put these repos anywhere you want. So I'm going to make a directory here with the makedir command, and I'm going to call it forked. Wow, my system's being real slow. This is my local system too. I don't know what's going on with it. Okay, so makedir forked, and then I'm going to cd into the fork directory. And then we will, from here, I'm going to git clone, and then I'm going to paste. Oh, my system's being real funky now. I wonder what's going on here. I wonder if it's one of my USB cords is loose or something here. Okay, anyways, tighten that up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to git clone this and hit enter. And now it's going to clone down my fork of the PKS Ninja repository. Right? And one of the cool things about Git is that when you clone a repository down to your local file system. Sorry, system's acting up here. I'm going to pause the video for a second and see if I can figure out why my system's being a little slow here. Give me a second. Okay, well, for some reason my system's been a little slow now. It probably needs a reboot, but I am in the middle of recording, so I'll just pause it if it gets too slow. But you can see that clone command finished, and now if I list my, I can see in my forked directory I have another subdirectory PKS Ninja, and I can change into my, oops, make sure I keep my caps consistent there. My PKS Ninja directory. Really cool thing about this, about Git is that it recognizes the context of the subdirectory that you're in. So if I do git push from this directory, it won't impact anything in my other Git repositories. So as you can see up here, I have a whole bunch of Git repositories, and because I'm in beneath this PKS Ninja in the forks, where it has downloaded, like if I show my hidden files here, you see it's downloaded a secret.git directory, and that keeps this subdirectory in, so where when I execute Git commands locally within it, it only affects the local repository I'm working in. So I can just do a git push, right? And I don't have anything to push right now, right? Because we just barely cloned this, but that works, right? And I'm gonna Control C out of that because I don't need to, to push that right now. Okay. Okay. Now that we have added our fork. What we're going to do is add an upstream, right? And so your main intent here with keeping a fork is in this case in particular, our goal is not to have something different that stays different from the main repo. In general, you're always going to want to keep it in sync with the main repo. The only time you should be out of sync with the main repo is if you've added something new, right? You add it, push it back into the main repo, and then you stay back in sync with the main repository. And so what we can do is add an upstream to our Git repository here, to our fork of it. And what that'll do is then we can synchronize our fork with just a couple simple commands. And so that way, let's say somebody else has made an update. And now you've come in and you want to make updates to your copy of it. Before you start on that, you're going to want to make sure your copy is nice and already in sync, right? And so we'll see how to do that now. So we do a one-time setup here where we're going to add the upstream. And once we've added the upstream, after that, it's just a couple simple commands that you'll do each time you come to make updates to sync up your fork. And all these steps to create and set up the fork, you only have to do them once, right? After that point, it's just some real simple commits. So now we're going to enter a command here, git remote add upstream. right? And you can see that I have the official source Ninja repository here, and I'm adding it as an upstream to this repo. Now, once I've done that, I can run a command, git remote -v, and that's going to show us, just to kind of confirm that it did recognize that we have added the upstream. So you can see I have an origin here. My origin is my local. You can see that's my GitHub username, and I have an upstream that is the main repository. Okay, now that is it for the setup steps. Now your fork is completely prepared to where anytime you want to do any updates in the future, you just do a little maintenance sync on this, and then you can go. Now I want to show you here. Let me pull this over to the share. If you look at my repo, my fork, I forked this a while ago, right? And I haven't synced it in a while. So I want to show you here. I'm going to do some updates to this lab 11. Harbor pipeline install, and you can see on my fork there's nothing here. It's completely blank because I haven't synced it in a while. Now if I go back over to the main repo, you see I'm on CNA Tech PKS Ninja, so I'm going to go back up here, and now if I go here into that lab 11 we just looked at on the main repo, you can see it actually has content. Right, I need to update the content. If you look at it, I'll explain what I did. So we'll update that in a minute. But you can see there is content here. But if I go to my fork, come on, there's no content. And so we'll look at how to synchronize my fork to where it's back up to speed. So first, I'm going to do a command called. And so this is what I'll do every single time I want to make an update. I may have been going about my daily life and I've sat down now and I'm like, okay, good, cool, I'm ready to make some updates. And so every time to maintain your fork, before you do anything else, you're going to make sure that it's in sync. So we're going to do git fetch upstream. Okay, give that a second to run. Okay. And then now notice it says that we have a new branch right here, and it's got the upstream master. And what we're going to do is make sure that we are back on the local master, because we're going to merge the upstream master into our local master. So we want to make sure our local context is set to where when we apply that merge, it applies it to the local master. So we're going to do git checkout master, right? And notice I didn't say upstream master, right? I'm saying we're checking back out our local master branch. And now that we're, well, it says we're already on, so, and it says my branch is up to date with origin master, right? And if you look at our stream here, you see our origin for this is my forked repo. So I am up to date with my fork, but my fork is not up to date with the upstream. And so now what we're going to do is merge upstream into our local master here. So we do git merge, and we say upstream, if I can type, /master. Okay, and now what this is going to do is this is going to it's going to pull the all of the updates from the main PKS Ninja repository, and it's going to pull them into my local copy of my forked repository. Right? Notice I'm pulling this down locally, and so even though my local copy of my forked repository will get updated, I still have to do one more git push to make sure that my forked repository stays in full sync with the main Git repository, right? And this is taking a little bit longer than it might otherwise, one, because of my system, but also because I haven't done this yet. So I just created this repository. Doing subsequent updates, it's not going to have to update everything, right? Git is smart enough to know that it's having to update all these because these all have changed since the last time I created this repo, I've done a ton of updates. But usually you'll sync this on a fairly regular basis, and it just takes a second to do. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that if there's any updates in my local file system, they're added to staging, and then I'll do a git commit, and I'm just going to give it a -m, a little message here that says synced with upstream. All right, and we'll go here. And then git push. Right. And once we do the git push, we'll give it our username and password. Hopefully I remember what the one is for this account. Let's see. Ahul VMware. Okay. And now it's going to push all these objects back up here to my fork of the Git repository. So if you remember a minute ago, we looked at my fork and we saw that I didn't have anything for lab 11. So now let's go back. And we're going to go to, let's make sure we go to the one, my fork, right? We see here Afuel VMware. And I'm on this page that had nothing. And I can load up here, and we can see now I have that lab 11 that was from my main one, right? So I know that seems like it took a minute, but a lot of that was the initial setup. It's really real quick, especially once you've done it a few times, to just, okay, I made an update to this thing, now we'll go. Now I want to show you here one thing we haven't done yet. We synced our fork, but we haven't pushed an update. So I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and we'll push a little update. We'll see right here on my fork of the repo, right? And this is also true on the main repo here. So if you look, it says 1.1, 1.2, 1.4. The numbering's out of order. There's some other problems too. But just to show you how this is done real quick, I'm going to change 1.4 here and have that updated to it goes 1.2, 1.3. We'll worry about 1.5 later. But we'll have that to where it'll go 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. We'll make that update now. Right, and so we'll make that update to our fork, and then we'll push a pull request, and that'll push it back into the main repo. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my code base here, and we can see I'm in my PKS Ninja repo, and I can go cd lab guides, right? Just like this is the same directory structure we saw on the website, right? PKS Ninja, lab guides, and if we look under lab guides, we'll see here that we've got all those same exact lab guides, lab 1, lab 2, etc. And the one we were concerned about was lab 11, Harbor Pipeline install. So I'm going to change directory to lab 11. Oops, I'll make sure I capitalize it appropriately. Lab 11, Harbor Pipeline install. We'll go into there. And since my text editor that I'm using here is code, I can type in code readme, right? And you could, if you're using VI, you would do VI readme. If you're doing a different text editor, it doesn't exactly matter how you open the text editor. You can open it out of band, right? The key is opening the readme file here that is in the appropriate directory on your local file system. So I'll go ahead and open that, and in a second here it'll open up. System's being unusually slow. Okay, so now we have the file opened here above, and one of the cool things about using an IDE, it really helps to make your screen real estate effective, and you have these cool things like being able to preview. And previews are a really important part of the bootstrapping process, right? Having a system that can do a side-by-side preview is really effective, so you can see what your output will look like, and it really helps you make sense, because some of the stuff may be new to you, right, in Markdown. And so you can go look up some Markdown stuff, and it's good to take a little but basic Markdown tutorial if you want, but really you can just copy a lab guide, and that's what I did here. So to get the text for the lab 11 Harbor Pipeline install, it's a very similar text to the lab 10. So I copied lab 10 and pasted it in, right? And then I'm just updating the steps here for lab 11. And so as I mentioned, you saw before, it goes straight from 1.2 to 1.4. And so I'm going to go ahead here, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to change 1.4 to 1.3, and I'll also call this 1.3. Normally doesn't do that, but I think it's the video recording. So anyways, so now we've got that, and here I can hit Control S to save. And so I saved it, and once I saved it, I'm going to go back down into my terminal area, and I'm going to just go to my make sure I'm in my forked PKS Ninja repo. And again, the Git commands are sensitive to the context, so it knows that you're executing this command from this repo, and it's going to apply to this particular repo. So now I can go git add, and this adds any file that I've modified since the last commit, right? Or since yeah, and so before I changed that file, it knew that I'm on the main branch, right? And then I changed something, and it knew that it's got some changes, and I have to add those to staging, and so that way when I do a push, it knows to push those. It's not going to push something that I may want to change something, but I'm not ready to push it up to the repo yet, right? So it allows you to do that and make sure you can stage it before you push it up. So that git add dot adds all the local files that I changed, and I'm going to say git commit, and I can hit enter after git commit, and it'll open nano, and it'll allow me to make my message that way. Or if you just have, so if that's really cool if you have a longer message, but if you just have a short message, you can just put it inline here with the -m flag. And so I'm going to say updated numbering in lab 11. That's still meaningful now anyways. Okay, and now I have, and this is what's required every time you add something, right? You have to just do that git add real quick. You have to do the git commit. So there's a note, and then you're ready to push. So every time you do a commit, this is the step you do: git add, git commit, git push. And once you do git push, it's going to let you log in here. So I'm going to put my afuel VMware username here, and then I'm going to say my password. Let's see. And what that's going to do is that's going to push it back up to my fork of the PKS Ninja repo. I'm not quite at contributing it back to the main repo yet. So let's go back into our web browser, and now we can see I'm back on my fork, and I haven't refreshed this yet, so you can still see I'm still going from 1.2 to 1.4, but I just pushed, and so now on refresh, I should see that the update has taken effect on my fork of the repo. So now you can see it says 1.3, 1.3. So now 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So now we've updated my fork, and so now I've got to get my update back onto the main update. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the main CNA Tech PKS Ninja repo. I'm going to go to pull requests, and I'm going to go new pull request. Now this already knows, right, that I have a fork. It's logged in as me, and so I need to set this up to where I want the base to be master, and I want to compare it with, hang on, oops, sorry, forgotten. Yeah, to do this you got to click here first, compare across forks. So we'll click on compare across forks, and it starts here with the base fork, right, of our main repo, right? Because what we're doing is we're taking an update from our branch, and in here you see I've got afuel VMware, that's my fork, and I'm taking the updates are there, right? So notice this little directional arrow helps to make sure that you've understood this, right? And so you just say here's my repo that I have an update in, and we want to compare that back and to merge back into the base. Right? You click this button that says create pull request, and that's it. well, why you can leave a additional comment, but notice it already has the comment that you left, so you don't necessarily need to add additional comment if you want. Remember, when you submit it, someone has to review it, so it is good to explain the stuff that you did in a clear way. And if you don't leave a decent comment, then I may not approve it. But this is good enough, right? You updated the numbering in Lab 11. I can infer from that the numbering was out of order. If you wanted to put something in the comment, you could say something like, numbering was out of order. I corrected something. It doesn't have to be formal, right? Anything very simple. So then you click the button to create a pull request. Oh, my screen again being weird. And now I want to show you what it looks like from my end, right? From the student account, you can see here that I've got the pull request. And so let me log in with my account. I'll just go open another browser. Let's see if I have Firefox here. Okay, so let me sign in here. And let's see, let's go to the PKS Ninja repository. And so now I'm signed in with my local admin account. Most of you will not have this. One thing to note, if any of you do at some point ever become an administrator, you can't fork the repository because you can commit directly. So you have to log in with a separate account if you do want to fork it and go through any labs that involve forking. And I can see your pull request right here. And in general, these are real easy to merge, right? It's going to tell me if there's a conflict. I can go in here and I can, review. It has a really cool little thing. You see it shows me what I changed exactly. I changed it from 1.4 to 1.3, and I also changed the numbering here from 1.4 to 1.3. So I can see that, and I'll just go back, and I can click Merge Pull Request, confirm merge. And now, if we go in here into Lab 11 on the main repo, we can see here that we have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Our update has taken effect. And so again, I know this is, the first time you do it, it seems cumbersome, right? But you do it a few times. You practice doing it on a regular basis. You do some small commits. You come here and okay, now I've got time. First thing you do again, just last review. You have it in your history here. Is you can come in and where were we? So just do the get fetch upstream, get checkout master, then get merge, and then you're in sync. And then anything you change after that, you'll do the get add, get commit, and get push, right? And then you'll be synced up. Got to sync. Next, you make a few more changes. You do the sync up again, and then you just make your changes. So once you get used to that, it's a very quick process, and you can very easy. And a lot of that was just that one-time setup, right? So hopefully, we'll make it easy for you. And every time you do this, keep in mind this is what builds your credibility on builds your credibility when you go to a customer site. You'll be able to walk in and say, with the knowledge that you're a Git committer, and you kind of have, some real understanding of what that is about. You can, when you get to your profile, right? So you start to go to your profile here, really, and you can start to see, people can see your commit and contribution activity, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a typo or if you're actually doing code. People will see you're committing, and they'll see that you're committing not just to your own repos, but you're committing to community repositories, and start to really build your profile on GitHub. And so I think that's about it. Again, I guess one last thing I want to mention here is you can, if you do want to add additional lab guides, right? Maybe you want to add some content and you're not really sure if you want to use it to enhance an existing lab guide. At some point, once we feel that the core guides for Ninja are complete, and we'll kind of lock these down and recommend any additional content, goes to an additional lab guide. For the time being, if you want to feel like you have a major update to one of these lab guides, or if you're not sure if you can put it in the lab guide or what to do with it, just create a new lab guide under bonus labs, right? And so we could have it, maybe later we'll pull it back in. Maybe you create, say, some additional troubleshooting content. You could always create it as a even though there is a troubleshooting lab, you can just create another bonus lab for troubleshooting part 2, or something that goes to a deeper level. If we ever want to merge it back into this core curriculum, we can do it that way. But the most important thing is that we get these lab guides here, I'm going to keep on adding new labs to this bonus lab section. I hope you guys keep adding new labs to the bonus lab section. And so again, this is not only for new students, this is for each of us to continue to quickly be able to lab up and test out new features and share that information quickly with each other. So thank you for listening. Really, really grateful for your participation in the community. I really hope this can become something that community governance and is really going to be a useful community for all of us. Thanks a lot.